Welcome back to the channel, y'all. This is Pops with ManVersusFish. Today we're just hanging out at a local pond. We've had questions before about how do you throw a swim bait, especially a small one. You know, it's post-spawn, these fish are kind of finicky. So we're going to show you what we're throwing. We're using a Jackal Rhythm Wave on a Z-Man weedless eye jig. And this is really good for keeping on top of emerging weeds. We're using a real light one. This is 1/8 of an ounce. We're using a Kage light jig and Texas rig, the 7-1 medium with a Tatula 100. That's our setup for this. And we're going to talk about the different retrieves that we use. We're only using 10-pound line in this case. And one of the things we like to do is throw it out there and just let it sink. There we hit bottom. So now one of the retrieves we use is just slow rolling right along the bottom. Make sure you're making contact with the bottom, with weeds, with something. You want to be bumping into something as you're retrieving this little swim bait because you want it to react other than the paddle tail. And hopefully that's going to trigger a fish, even with these bright bluebird skies and high pressure. Another retrieve we like to use is, once again, throw it out there, let it sink all the way to the bottom. I know sometimes you got to be patient, and I don't like being patient when I'm fishing. I like to go. But when the fish are in a negative mood or they're just lazy, you got to do something different. So now we hit bottom, and all I'm going to do is retrieve it with short little jerks. So it's a bait fish on the bottom, near the bottom, and they're chasing things. At least that's what it appears like to the bass. And again, you want to make sure when you're doing this that you're bumping into something. Guys get too worried about snagging and they don't bump into stuff. Well, a lot of times that bump is what's going to trigger your bite. So you got to be bumping. And then when you get it in, just stick it back out there. Well, y'all, we're working this little swim bait that we talked about, the little rhythm wave, and even as sloppy as this stuff is, as you can see, this little rhythm wave on the Z-Man weedless eye jig will get you into this slop and get you through it. Now, this isn't a big fish, as you can see, but the good part is that swim bait has got him right in the corner of the face, just like it's supposed to, just like that. But that's the beauty of a swim bait like this. You can throw it where these fish should be hiding, which is in all this grass. So yeah, he's a little guy, but again, you got to go where they go to find them. And we'll give him a little splash down and he's gone. Another retrieve we like to use is throw it out there, let it hit the bottom, and it's a lot like yo-yoing a lipless crankbait. Find the bait on the bottom and just jerk it up and slowly let it sink. And jerk it up and slowly let it sink. Jerk it up, slowly let it sink, rinse, repeat, do that all the way back to you. And a lot of times where you're going to get this bite is when that swim bait is starting to fall after you jerk it up. So that's another one, and we'll show you a couple more real quick, and hopefully this will help. And if you have any questions, comments, you know, give us a like, subscribe, follow, and let us know what you think. So one more retrieve we like to use on a regular basis is dragging. Dragging is a little bit different than sitting there slow rolling it along the bottom, because the only time you're using your reel is to pick up your slack. Let it sink, pick up your slack, and literally drag the bait. Let it stop, pick up your slack, and drag it again without using the handle of your reel to bring in the slack. You only want to use the handle to pick up slack. The only time you move it, you're moving it with the tip of your rod. Now you can use these retrieves not only for a swim bait, you can use them for a lot of soft plastics, and people do. But don't get confined to thinking there's only one way to work a soft plastic, because that's just not true. A lot of times you got to wait for the fish to tell you what they want. Well guys, here we go. Next cast. Just throwing it out in all these weeds. He doesn't feel like he's a very good one, but he sure is jumping and hopping around. You can see all the weeds on my line. Keep in mind, we're only using 10-pound line with this little setup, because this jig head is only 1/8 of an ounce. So you got to use light line so you can get good distance from it. But once again, this little guy came up and right in the corner of the mouth. Again, you can see that around these weeds. So there you go. Great way to catch them when they're kind of off the bite. Okay, so one final retrieve to show you. We'll throw it out there. And again, we like to, especially post-spawn, these fish aren't necessarily suspended when we got high, hot bluebird skies. They're closer to the bottom, so we'll let it sink, and we'll start our little steady, slow retrieve, and then jerk it, just like you would a jerk bait. And let it fall down to the bottom, pick it up, steady, slow retrieve, and jerk it. Because if there's something following it, and that bait jerks, that might be what triggers that fish to go ahead and eat it. Even though he's not necessarily in the mood to feed, it just looks like something getting away from him, and he can't help himself. He doesn't want it to get away, so he's going to bite it. Hope this helps.